Greetings, Internet, and welcome to another mildly interesting episode of Real Debate. As always, I'm Kyle. Joining me this week, we have John.
Yo.
And Nate.
I'm unusual today.
I mean, at this point, I should just be saying the usual hosts, because you're the only people that have time to be here.
Woo! We're fun employed.
No, it's more of, woo! You're the only ones that I can rope into this crazy thing.
Okay, Dan will be back one day.
One day.
One day.
We can
Only.
Anyways, so we're doing things different yet again, because we're talking about the movie Zulu, the 1964 classic, which is really, really good. That was the first time I sat through the whole movie. I'd seen bits and pieces of it when I was really young, and wow.
You get great character arcs that come through with a lot of the one of the sick, because I guess there was 11 people that got the highest award that Britain had to offer at the time from this fight out of like the 187 in all of like 100 years that it's been around. So that says a lot to be able to have like 6 or 7 character arcs that are on the British side.
Yeah.
Happening, and it is kind of, an underdog's tale. And it's a freaking great movie. I loved it.
And, probably best thing about this movie is, yeah, it was made in 1964, but there's no racism.
Yeah. It goes to show, the professionalism of the British Army, and I think there's like twice that the Zulus are called savages, and immediately after that is said, somebody snaps in and is just like, no, they just wiped out 1,800, the stronger force that we're here for. We have to take them seriously, and that's something that throughout all the leading parts up to Rorke's happening goes to show.
Not to mention that it's like when someone says, oh, they're a bunch of savages, someone immediately goes, yeah, but they do this better than we do.
Mm-hmm.
They can march for... How long can you march in a day? Oh, probably about 15 miles. They can do that at a full sprint and then fight a battle.
They'll cover 50 miles and then fight you. Doesn't that make them idiots? No, it makes them insane.
Well-disciplined.
But also, because this movie, the battle is an hour out of a 2-hour movie. It's not feasible for me to do a full synopsis of the battle, so we're going to do our best to drunkenly explain history to you all.
Woo!
But I'm the only one drinking.
It doesn't mean I'm not spiritually drunk.
It doesn't matter. We're all inebriated somehow.
Yeah.
Get me some drugs. 1 drugs, please, Nate.
My man.
Kids, don't do drugs. They're expensive.
Or
ask your mother for money first.
talk to your doctor.
We're terrible people, aren't we?
Probably.
So, what led up to this battle was the British were kind of looking for a war.
Well, the British governor of the area was looking for war because he was, promised a higher position in the government or, rewards for it. And because the British Empire itself didn't really want one. They just wanted the lands.
And the diamonds.
Yeah,
Yes.
Diamonds had recently been discovered in the area, and, well, people like to kill for shiny rocks that tell other people that you love them.
With the amount of people that were coming in, it was necessary. I wouldn't say necessary, but the British government saw it as a necessity to protect their citizens, and so would follow them out. And so when the people were pushing, the British troops would also kind of troop and guard them in a way, kind of ahead of time.
And there was also a lot of conflict as well with the former Welsh people that were there.
Dutch.
Dutch.
Yeah, the Boers,
Yep.
Boers.
Those Dutch know how to make their ovens.
But I mean, that's how the British were able to, have such a large empire throughout the world, is because that's what they did. They sent their merchants out and said, "Hey, trade with us, or we're going to get into a conflict." And then they would get ahead economically in the area. Then the indigenous people would generally group up and then try and fight the British, and then the British would win.
Colonialism.
The
British
circle of colonialism, and it screws the natives.
Wait, what about me?
Your Nate puns are not appreciated here.
Just like the indigenous people. Just kidding. We love you, indigenous people.
To the one guy who's Native American who might be watching this, fucking love you, bitch.
It's more so I made a pun with you and me. We're blood connected. You can probably.
That's cultural appropriation.
Well, it's my name appropriative. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I need to get that copyrighted someday.
Good luck.
Anyways, so the British gave the Zulu a 30-day ultimatum there was no chance in hell that they were going to accept it. It was ridiculous. It was, give us all of your weapons and let us install people in your ruling council.
Yeah, there's no way that the Zulu people actually fell for that either. Yeah.
Yeah, they kept their guns.
They were smart. They were already like, no, we know you type of people.
What do you mean, you people?
We see what you're trying to do here. Nuh-uh.
And I would like to touch up on the primary tactics of both armies. The Zulu used what is called the bull. It's where the main force charges the enemy. The two horns try to flank and encircle, and the loin waits. And as soon as they're given word, they go and reinforce where they are needed. Basically, a very, very efficient four-pronged tactic that is amazing for the field of battles in which the Zulu were, fighting in. And it overthrew a large area of land in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also to be said that the surprise of having the other part of the force hidden behind where they can't be seen, where he would have them not even be engaged in the battle, not even looking at the battle, generally hidden, and then just as the people being surrounded think that they have a way to break the lines and get out, all of a sudden another almost third of the army appears out of nowhere and comes in to support. Which, at that point, you're like, crap.
Yeah, this is where Shaka Zulu himself used to great effect against one of his brothers at the battle of... What was the battle that was on the hill called?
I cannot remember off the top of my head.
Insert name here.
Yeah.
Just because he knew that they were outnumbered 2-1 against an army, and so they were on top of a hill, and he forced them to come at him, and they tried using that tactic, but Zulu knew it. Well, no, never mind.
No, they did use that tactic, and it worked.
Yeah.
And another thing I would like to touch up on is that prior to this extremely efficient tactic, Zulu warfare was what warfare was in a lot of the world pre-Roman society. It was more so, we're going to get a bunch of guys together, we're going to throw some sharp objects, and after a few guys on our side die, we're going to run off, and yeah, you can keep this farmland. It's not worth dying for.
So
So,
more ritualistic.
so Shaka Zulu was, 15 years before Rourke said?
It was a lot longer.
Like
than that.
30
That
years?
Was, 50.
Okay, 50 years? Okay,
It
so...
was the 1820s, as I recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, in 1780.
Don't hold me to numbers. I'm really bad with them.
Yeah, so, and I bring that up because the bullhorn was so successful for the Zulu people that as the Zulu Empire, their entire military was trained to do this, and it was just hammered into them, their roles in the bullhorn when they were attacking people. So,
Filling in for Nate, who took at least 5 attempts at this, I'm only giving you a little bit of shit, Nate.
oh yeah.
So the Zulu were extremely disciplined in their roles. They had virtually no communication, but every man knew their job, and so everyone just went in and did what needed to be done. It was, I wouldn't say it's extremely rigid, but at the same time, there was no need to be flexible.
Yeah, they were very well disciplined. It was went like clockwork. They had everything down to the minute and time and how they were going to do this and react to things. And depending on what they were fighting, usually worked very well, except for in this particular case.
And on the other side, we have the British, who are, well, stiff upper lip.
Yeah.
They were extremely disciplined in what they needed to be doing. If someone was starting to freak out, someone would just remind him, that's not setting a good example for the men now, is it, chap?
It's not very British of you.
And generally it was like oh god, I'm setting a bad example for those around me, kind of force them into the right stiff upper lip.
Yep.
And it's honestly not a bad mentality.
Yeah, they're very calm and they keep a cool head in combat, which enables them to clarity of mind and proper focus.
And this enables the British for their favorite tactic, the Mad Minute.
Mm-hmm.
It is a disciplined rank file firing line. While one line is firing, the other is reloading, and they take turns. And this has been used up to and through World War One. And in the onset of World War One, the British thought that there were dozens of machine guns on the British side because of how they used the Mad Minute.
You mean the Germans?
Isn't that what I said?
I think you said the British thought that the British had machine guns.
The Germans thought the British had him.
Yeah.
I know what I mean.
Yes.
But, and later on they found out there were 0 machine guns in the British ranks. Because the British thought the machine gun was a stupid invention.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, at the time, kind of makes sense, but that would be getting way off track.
They were really clunky and had prone to being jamming and that kind of stuff.
The first couple of months of the First War, they thought it was going to be a very mobile war with cavalry making this... Cavalry being highly influential, and everyone quickly learned that was not happening as trenches started to be built.
Yep.
Anyways, that's completely off track and showing how much I obsess over the Great War.
Yeah.
Anyone who knows me has endured me sitting them through a program about the Great War.
Yep.
So Nate had to go off to make a sandwich. He's got a migraine at time of recording. We don't blame him for that at all.
We don't?
Okay, I guess we do blame him at all. So, this battle should not have happened for one reason. The leader of the Zulu ordered his men to not follow the British into what was their territory.
Yeah, they had just got done fighting a very large-scale battle in Zululand. They had taken out 1,800 British forces that were horribly organized. That was like...
They were poorly managed. Their commander was constantly ignoring messengers saying, "Dear God, we need reinforcements, please come back." He thought that they were just exaggerating, and there were a couple of tribesmen at most.
Yeah, we have guns, they have sticks, big deal. Yeah, that worked out great for you, buddy.
But, yeah, there's so much that we took in for this. We actually did research.
Solid
vaguely.
15 minutes of science.
We found another YouTube video that was very coherent, and we're now trying to regurgitate that into your ears.
On some level or another. Not completely.
So, I have to say, the wit in this movie is really spectacular.
Oh yeah, the subtlety of the British humor, how they talk to each other. Oh, the one scene where the two leaders are arguing with each other and basically just calmly talking. And the whole time watching that thinking, if this was any other group of people, that would have devolved into a fist fight and yelling match, basically.
If these were Americans, they probably would have tried to shoot each other in 2 minutes.
After the one dude just got done insulting the other guy, he's like, "So, did you manage to put any scouts up on the hill?" "Not as of this moment, no." Well, right on. Might as well do that.
And one of my favorite lines in this whole movie was Michael Caine's character just going, "Oh, well, we obviously can't fail now." "Why's that, sir?" Because the military really frowns upon having more than one disaster in a day.
We've already had one bad showing. We can't do it twice. It'll look bad for the queen.
Yes, indeed.
But there's so much great banter that makes me really miss a lot of British television and whatnot.
Yeah, especially the crazy priest guy. He was a little fanatical.
Aren't they all?
Mm-hmm. This is true. Although, thanks to him, the people at Rorke's Drift were able to be made aware that the forces were coming there.
Yes.
I'd like to kind of touch up on the fact that the cavalry that showed up didn't actually support the people in the fight, which was a huge, crushing morale thing for the soldiers there.
Well, they were militia.
Yeah,
They were
the
not.
Dutch?
They were not quite the Dutch, as far as I know, but they were. So basically, the Redcoats are the professional army of the British, but they employed a lot of locals to hold the area, and they're obviously not as disciplined, and so they were just kind of in a.
Nope.
We just saw what happened. Your problem. You're paid to do this.
Bye. Fuck this. I'm out.
Another interesting thing is that the terrain really did play a factor in how this battle went.
Yeah. Well, it definitely worked in favor of the Zulu for sure.
I'd say it more so worked in the favor of the British.
Just the fact that there were like essentially pseudo trenches all around the Rorke's Drift that the Zulu could hide in. They were able to get pretty close.
Yes, but at the same time, the terrain kept the Zulu from fully implementing their full tactic of surround and push.
Oh, well, they did kind of surround the enemy.
It took them a lot longer than they were used to, and it did prevent them from fully pushing when they should have and could have.
Yeah.
Basically, the British were able to hold out until the movie doesn't show it, but reinforcements were supposed to be pouring in at the end.
Yeah, afterwards they were coming in.
Also, that scene where they're just kind of singing back and forth.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
That's just really cool. Like, that's one of the things I know didn't happen historically, but it was so cool it kind of had to happen in the movie.
Well, it technically could have happened. You don't know.
There were enough accounts that it didn't happen, but it really worked.
Yeah, it did.
Seriously, go watch this movie if you haven't seen it. It's really good.
Is at the beginning of the battle, you see the Zulu forces come up and they start to test the fence, essentially, trying to poke the defenses, the perimeter, to see what they could get away with and how well defended it was, testing the range of the weapons, when the British would start firing. I didn't particularly care for that, as it was essentially just sacrificing soldiers for the sheer sake of being able to determine what the effectiveness of the enemy was.
You know,
I mean, it's a good strategy in the long run, but I just can't see soldiers being completely on board with that.
I do have to agree with it, though, because they had a bunch of guns they had just stolen.
Yeah.
And so by sacrificing some of their men, they were able to go, okay, they can shoot that far. Let's get the weapons we just stole. If we get them up there, we can probably hit them. Let's do that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And
they didn't really understand how the guns work too well.
Also, knowing approximately their effective range meant that they knew how close they had to sneak.
Yep.
And every time that the Zulu are shown, getting on the ground and slowly crawling up, they're going way closer because they know that, well, they can hit us here, so we need to get within this range.
Yep. And then the Zulu were kind of going back and forth and distracting the British. They'd start attacking from one side while forces sneak up on the other. And then the moment that that's done, those people can back off once they get routed, and then the next people can come up from the other side and start attacking, forcing the British soldiers to divide their forces.
That definitely probably would have worked if they hadn't stopped to think to organize, people to move from one side to the other.
Yeah.
If they had stayed as rigid as the British normally would, they would have been overrun because they weren't thinking to send some people to the other side, have people ready to
Move back and forth.
redeployment
Yep.
is very important, even in a very small area.
Yeah, I almost think that the Zulu possibly could have won if they would have either A, attacked from both sides, or poke the defenses first, see where they move their troops over to, and then on the weaker side, send a much larger force over to go attack.
I mean,
Try to
they did
create a weak point on purpose.
They did figure out the weak point because they burnt down the hospital.
Yeah, they tried to get into the building, which, get inside there, close quarters. If it wasn't for the fact that the guns accidentally set the building on fire.
Which historically did happen.
Yep. That might have been very bad.
It did look clunky, but at the same time, it's a 1964 movie. A lot of things were kind of clunky by today's standards, but, I'll take...
Practical effects.
One, practical effects. Two, let's face it, I'll take a movie that keeps a still shot and kind of looks a little wonky over a movie that needs a dozen jump cuts.
Yep. But yeah, they did pretty good with that. I do have to comment, it was really funny to see the bayonet battles when they were just like stabbing behind the people, or just like poking them in the chest, and the guy just goes, ah! I love that cheesiness.
I love that cheesiness, and I'll take it over bad CG any day.
Yeah, I agree. No CGI monsters, please.
If you do a CGI monster, at least have had something physically there, and then make the CG make it look fluid.
Yeah,
that's really the best way to do it. Like Jurassic Park.
Yep.
Seriously, have you watched Jurassic Park recently?
Yeah. Still holds up.
The scenes with Velociraptors still scare the living shit out of me.
Oh yeah, even the classic scene with the T-Rex on top of the car, that's amazing.
Yeah, and let's face it, the Brontosaurus looks really bad now, but I'll live with that if I get scenes like the T-Rex and the Velociraptors any day.
Yeah.
But we're getting ourselves off topic as usual.
Yep. I like how eventually the General DeForest got tired of the priest demoralizing his units and trying to get everyone to give up and run. So he just puts them in a cart and sends them out on his own into the enemy forces.
I mean, that's one way to deal with a priest.
Yeah. You need to go. We're tired of you.
Get little Timmy to start confessing.
I think they should have just tied him to a post and stuck him out there. But that's me.
I mean, they were trying to be decent and give him a chance.
Yeah, I guess.
And the Zulu were kind enough to let them go the first time, and they were kind of being in the, what, those guys are harmless.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they could send message.
I mean, at this point, the Zulu knew that there was probably relief enforcements coming in. And
also, yeah, that's true. The cat was already out of the bag.
Literally and metaphorically.
Or the cheetah, in this case, or lion.
They did catch a cheetah, yes. Also, nothing to do with tactics at all, but I really love how the two British officers interacted with each other.
Oh yeah, the banter back and forth between them.
Because one of them was an engineer by trade.
Yep.
So he was always willing to get his hands dirty and just get right in there and deal with the problem, while the other one was raised on stories from relatives about how they were of a reasonable rank, and so he always had his hands behind his back and was like, oh, I'll tell my man to take care of it for you.
Yep. As the engineer says, I'm just here to build a bridge.
Yeah.
I think having him there in that battle, though, really helped them because he was able to properly set up the defenses and plan the walls.
Yeah, and them going back and forth, they both could talk the other out of what would be a really bad idea.
Yep.
I don't know if this happened historically, but I love that kind of character interaction. And yeah, one of them pulled rank once, but they both quickly came to appreciate what the other brought to the table, and they weren't bickering.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was either they work together or they die, and they were able to realize that.
And
It doesn't always happen.
I love that character interaction versus we must fight with each other because plot demands it, grr.
Yeah, right, exactly. Which ends up usually with the forces getting slaughtered.
Yeah.
When your leadership is falling or failing, then the troops also fail. And there's a lot of really good scenes for the British tactics as well, like when they would intentionally pull away from the wall because they were about to get overrun. So instead of losing or fighting a losing battle at the wall in melee combat, they would pull back, forcing the Zulu to take a moment to climb over the wall, turn around, and then begin first rank, second rank fire, and then start marching backwards towards the wall, or forwards back to the wall to be able to retake the wall, rout the enemy, and then push them off, which was genius with the weapons and technology that they had.
Well, as I said, the Mad Minute.
Yep.
First rank fire, second rank fire. Good in the 18th century, good in the 41st millennium.
Yeah. Especially when they had that other wall with troops hidden behind it. It's kind of funny. They actually almost used the same strategy that the Zulu did. They had the loins in the back. And so that way, when they came through, they were able to do 3 ranks of fire from that position, which really, I think, ultimately pushed off one of the major pushes that the Zulu tried to do.
Yeah, and also having the engineer was really nice because, yeah, he was pushing the men through exhaustion to keep building fortifications, but they needed those fortifications in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. They wouldn't have won without them. If they were in an open field, they would have been screwed.
As he said, I want that wall to be 9 feet high. And when the color sergeant was like, sir, the men are exhausted, he's like, and?
Yeah, it's either do that or die.
And a lot of the soldiers are kind of shown just getting a catnap in, like leaning up against the wall with their eyes closed and going, oh, the next wave? Okay.
Yep.
And, I mean, that's true today with soldiers.
Yes, absolutely.
They have to do that sometimes, and
Yep.
that's a great way to get PTSD.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of dead people. And I like that even the injured soldiers in the hospital were still fighting, poking holes through the walls, so that way they could still be in their hospital beds.
I'm going to smash this glass even though the window opens.
Well, that's just rule of cool.
Rule of cool from 1964.
Yeah. One of the other things about the show that was really neat was actually showing all of the different cogs and wheels and how it actually takes to have a force like that fighting. They showed the people bringing out ammunition, opening up the ammo boxes, people bringing out water to the other troops, the Surgeon General in the back going through and taking care of the wounded. Well, kind of.
Best you can with that medicine.
Dead. Next.
But Doc, I ain't dead yet.
Yeah.
Who's the medical professional here?
I don't want to go on the cot.
There's actually a really interesting fact that I heard recently.
What's that?
To get supplies from the homeland to the troops on the front field during World War I took the average combined work of 17 men to supply one man.
Yep.
And that always sounded so low to me.
Yeah, that's pretty efficient.
Yeah, it says a lot for how much work it takes to fight a war.
Oh, it's very expensive.
Like, we're very dedicated to it sometimes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So, John, what would you rank the Zulu?
I think for the Zulu, I'll probably give them a B. Overall, I think they used their tactic very well. They were up against a technologically superior force. They definitely had numbers on their side. I think by all rights, with things going a little different, the Zulu should have won that battle. Not really being used to fighting against a fortification and generally only fighting in open field combat. Having to deal with that, I think, made things a little different for them, especially, considering the discipline of the British soldiers and how well they are at firing squads and that kind of stuff. I think possibly if they would have been more aggressive, they could have pulled that off, but they were too cautious because they didn't necessarily know what they were up against, and they fully understood how lethal the British troops could be.
I do have to say, knowing is half the battle.
Mm-hmm.
The other half is violence.
Yes. And to be fair, the Zulu did push them back off the walls quite a few times. They did destroy the hospital. They got inside the encampment many times, and they could have continued pushing, but at that point, are we going to suffer too many losses? Is it worth it? We need to find a way to cut our losses and properly take them out, is what I think they were trying to do. And eventually, at the end of it, they realized that it just wasn't, they weren't going to be able to get it done in time. And for the British, I mean, overwhelming odds, I have to give them an A. I mean, they did everything that they possibly could have done right.
Not to mention, since it's historical, they did do everything right by all accounts. This wasn't some made up crap that was like, and then they won because they're the heroes. Lol.
Yeah.
It was like a what? No, it was solid and it worked. Of course it succeeded.
Oh, and especially considering how terrified those people must have been, because they just heard that 1,800 soldiers in a professional army were just destroyed, and they have like what, 150 people?
Yeah.
Going up against like 4,000? Like, this isn't gonna work. I mean, by all means, a Zulu probably could have just gotten a giant clump, snuck around, and just ran at the walls until they drowned him in bodies.
At this point, I normally ask Nate, but he is not here. We have our Nate substitute. What does she think for Nate?
Oh, I didn't sign up for that.
Well, you know Nate doesn't think, so...
Yeah, I can't bring myself down to that level. That's not nice. It hurts. It hurts. It's not nice to do that. But okay, so what was the question?
I'm a mean, hurtful person. You expect anything less. What would you give the Zulu on a grade of A for amazing, F for see me after class?
I like their usage of color blocking, and they really seem to line up well. So I would totally give them like 2 thumbs up.
And what would you give the British?
They all needed haircuts so bad.
But those mutton chops, those glorious mutton chops that I crave,
And
I need in my life.
You can have well-coiffed mutton chops.
No, I can't.
That is a...
If I show my chin, people will try to kill me.
I would like to say, though...
I'm really curious now.
I would like to say, I'm pretty sure I saw that one dude from the Jumanji movie in the British forces.
No, it's John Cleese. Wait, no. That is John Cleese. Okay, never mind.
Thank you, very strange and unusual Nate.
Hey, I probably make more sense, so you know
for
what.
your input on this movie.
Glad to be a part of the team.
Thank you very much, not Nate.
Bye. Don't turn me into a fucking pun of his. Come on.
All right, Kyle, what would you rate the Zulu as?
This is a really tough one. Because on the one hand, they were fighting in a battle they were ordered not to.
Yeah.
And they were using a tactic that was normally very efficient in the one situation that it wouldn't have, or that it was very inefficient in.
Yeah, they couldn't bait the soldiers out of the camp.
And, you know, a lot of things went against them, all in all. So I kind of have to give them, like, the C to B range. Like, they were doing what they could with what they had, and by all rights, they probably should have succeeded.
Yep.
But things just didn't quite swing in their way.
Yep.
And the British, I kind of got to give an A. They had pure discipline on their side. And they had the combination of an engineer and someone who was raised on hearing the stories of what to do in these situations.
Yeah, military officer.
Yeah, so they...
Lieutenant.
they had a lot going in their ways. They got lucky at some parts, and were just...
They didn't break morale, I think, more than anything shows that they deserve pretty good.
I'm always pleased with professionalism in movies and people not breaking because the plot demands drama.
The only thing that I have to say about the whole concept of this battle was, why was that outpost really necessary or important if they knew more forces were coming?
It was a field hospital. It was so that they could give the surgeon a place that he could potentially operate or at least be treating people.
Yeah, but it almost seems like at that point, considering the circumstances, it would have been the smarter decision to just leave before the Zulu got there and
Well,
then come back later.
As they pointed out, the Zulu could run 50 miles while the British...
That's true, you probably wouldn't get away from him.
Yeah. The British could march 15 to 20 miles. The Zulu could run 50 and still fight.
Yeah.
So that was completely out of the question. If only they could have gotten some horses from the cavalry.
Yeah, and use the wagons.
What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Are we blithering idiots? Are we onto something? Is there something we missed? Let us know.